If you want to know the secrets of existence and the true meaning of life, I can't help you. But if you want some book recommendations, why not try reading the ones I wrote? If you're a fan of giant monster mayhem and anime weirdness, why not try Operation Red Dragon: The Kaiju Wars Part 1? If horror is more your style, you can't go wrong with The Occult Mafia. Those who enjoy their fantasy with a dark twist may be interested in Emerald of Maddox City. And if you're interested in shared universes, why not read all three? Hop on down to the description for links to all three books on Amazon. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video. Between the years 1965 and 1969, Sir Christopher Lee would play the title role in a series of films based on Sax Rohmer's classic pulp anti-villain Fu Manchu. When interviewed about these films years later, he would famously say, "We should have made the first one last because it was the best one." That's how I'm feeling about Shinpei Hayashiya's independent kaiju trilogy, because it's just gotten worse with each new entry. In case you haven't seen the initial reviews, I suggest you go back and watch them, but here's a brief summary of what came before.
The trilogy begins with deep-sea monster Raiga versus the battleship Yamato, known stateside as Raiga, King of the Sea Monsters, and it's a genuinely good film. The premise is interesting, the central kaiju has a great design and motivation, the human performances are good across the board, the story had just the right amount of comedy and drama, and the special effects... Well, okay, the special effects are inconsistent, but when they work, they really work. Several years later came the sequel, Ryga, Monster from the Deep Sea, known stateside as Ryga, God of the Monsters, and it's less good. It has no plot to speak of, it leans into comedy that feels random and poorly implemented, and everything the human characters do amounts to nothing by the end. The only saving grace of Ryga is Ryga himself. The titular kaiju is on screen a lot, and no moment where he appears is wasted.
And now we have the third entry, initially entitled Ryga vs. Ohga War of the Monsters, but retitled in the States as God Ryga vs. King Ohga. Boy, SRS Cinema sure wants people to think these are MonsterVerse movies, don't they? They have to market them to a wide audience somehow. And believe me, they will need all the help they can get with this one.
What can I say about the movie that's positive? Well, this one has more of a plot than its predecessor. This time we're following Commander Kita, the eye patch guy from the previous film. Apparently he was scapegoated for failing to defeat Ryga, and thus has been stuck with a literally crappy assignment, monitoring for kaiju activity from a small outpost camouflaged as a public toilet. He wants another shot at the monster to redeem himself, and he gets his chance when Ryga spontaneously returns. This time, however, Ryga is on a collision course with another kaiju, a subterranean beast named Ohga.
And that's about as much plot as you'll get out of it. Other stuff happens, but it doesn't really amount to much.
For example, an early scene involves the Prime Minister telling Japanese Marty Feldman that he intends to exploit the city's destruction by putting up casinos while rebuilding. After the initial attack midway through, we learn that this plan was abandoned for some reason, so the city was destroyed for nothing, but the scene which immediately follows explains that the casinos will be built after all, and it's never brought up again after that. We also get introduced to an all-female military unit run by the Prime Minister's mistress, and this adds nothing but time to the movie.
Seriously, we spend a lot of time learning who these women are, what their relationships are, and how they're connected to the plot, only for their contribution to be minor, and for them to disappear after it inevitably fails to work.
We also have a couple of American CIA operatives monitoring the situation who serve no purpose at all, so I won't bother saying anything else about them.
Hang on, can we back up a moment? What the heck was that scene with the G.I. Joe action figures? I suppose that does need some context, but heck if I can provide it.
Every now and then the movie cuts to this military base in which the occupants are literal toy soldiers who speak in on-screen text and move between camera cuts.
The best I can figure is that these scenes would have been too expensive to shoot with real actors and sets, so Hayashiya decided to get creative. Well, it's certainly different, but it kinda clashes with the rest of the movie, don't you think? It does, but truth be told, I would have rather the whole movie was done that way.
The scenes with the action figures are visually weird, but they at least have some real production quality to them. The live-action human scenes are another story. More often than not, characters do a lot of awkward standing around, and the editing often forgets to cut those few seconds where the actors start acting, leading to conversations having unnatural breaks in them.
I have no idea how this happened because this awkwardness doesn't exist in either of the previous films.
Then we get stuff like how the aforementioned female military unit resides in a place where the only color is lavender, or how some shots of the city are clearly just stock photographs.
If I didn't know better, I'd swear this was a fan film made by a completely different person. I mean, I get that it's low budget, but having a low budget didn't affect the other two films this way. There are rookie mistakes made in God Ryga vs. King Ohga, and I should know because they're the exact same mistakes I made when I was getting started in video editing.
So what happened? Did Hayashiya bump his head and forget how to make movies?
Either that or it was a stylistic choice that went too far. You know what the worst part is, though?
No, what?
We haven't even gotten to the Kaiju yet.
In the last Ryga movie, the Kaiju portions were the only parts that genuinely worked from beginning to end. They were low budget, sure, but good low budget.
As for this movie, well, here's a clip. Okay, so, starting now, I don't want to hear anyone complain about the weather effects in Godzilla King of the Monsters ever again.
Good grief, this actually hurts my eyes to look at, no exaggeration. Yes, the previous movies also made use of these After Effects overlays for certain scenes, but they were incorporated into the footage better than this.
Adding bubbles after the fact to make it look like the scene is underwater makes sense. It may not look perfect, but it's not distracting.
Here it's like somebody decided to just simultaneously use every After Effects animation they could without crashing the computer. There's no rhyme or reason to any of it, and the result is that scenes with Ryga and Ohga in them are incomprehensible. Compare that to King of the Monsters. I can still tell that this is Mothra behind the waterfall, or that this is Ghidorah in the clouds. Here, though, what the heck am I looking at? I'm pretty sure there are kaiju back there, but I can't tell where they are, what they're doing, or even what they look like.
Then again, when we do see the monsters, they don't look very good.
Taking out the shots that are obviously stock footage from the last film, new shots of Ryga provide no sense of scale and make the suit look inorganic. We rarely get a clear shot of Ohga, but when we do, he looks either like a foam puppet or a clay statue.
It's too bad because he has a cool design. At least as far as I can tell through all the crap obscuring him.
Throw in some really fake-looking vehicle models, some of which are obviously children's toys, and the overall effect is an eyesore.
And look, I know that earlier I said I preferred the scenes with the dolls to the scenes with the people, so it may sound weird of me to critique the kaiju and ships for looking fake. But in this case, it's a matter of internal consistency.
The movie just can't seem to decide what style it wants, so it throws up everything it can think of, and I do mean it throws up. Had it been a full-blown puppet show like Howl from Beyond the Fog, I could possibly accept it as a stylistic choice. But here we have random puppet scenes interspersed with live humans, stock footage of good kaiju scenes mixed with new poor kaiju scenes, and filters on top of filters on top of filters that obscure things to the point of incomprehensibility.
I really don't know what happened behind the scenes, but I know what the end result is, and I'm not satisfied with it.
After the credits roll, we get a very long stinger in which we're introduced to a pair of new kaiju who will apparently be the headliners going forward. Given the steady decline this series has shown, though, I'm not sure I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next.
The first two movies felt like they were made by someone with a passion for Kaiju Eiga and a good understanding of filmmaking. God Ryga vs. King Ohga, however, feels like it was made by someone whose only knowledge of Kaiju Eiga was a second-hand description of when Mystery Science Theater 3000 riffed Gamera vs. Giron, and whose only understanding of filmmaking is based on Birdemic shock and terror.
That bad, huh?
That bad.
You said earlier that it might be a stylistic choice. What if it is and your critiques are missing the point?
Well, if it was, I have no idea what that hypothetical style was trying to convey.
Bottom line, I'm disappointed. The first movie was great. The second movie was weird yet still had merit. But this barely qualifies as a movie.
I don't mean to be discouraging, you guys. I know that Shinpei Hayashia can make a good kaiju movie, and I want to see him do that again. If he does move forward with this sequel, I hope it bears more of a resemblance to Raiga than it does to Ryga vs. Ohga. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni viewer signing off. The sound mixing is also horrendous. I'd play you an example, but I don't want to blow out your headphones or your speakers. You're welcome.
If you enjoyed what you just saw, hop on down to the description for links to Patreon, DeviantArt, and all of our social media, as well as links for Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, and Emerald of Maddox City, 3 original novels I think you'll really enjoy. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.